Exclusive.
Warm spring weather can only mean one thing. Well, besides going to the beach and partying, it's alligator mating season. Especially if you're living in the state of Florida. Living down there means you share the state with an estimate of 1.3 million alligators. And as the weather's warming, the mating season begins. And you should keep all these things in mind. Alligators are more active and more visible, especially during courtship, and this begins in April. Then mating happens in May or June. Rising temperatures increase an alligator's metabolism, which means they begin seeking prey. It also means they'll be observed basking in the sun as they regulate their body temperature. And the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission warns that although alligator bites incidents resulting in serious injuries are rare, please keep your distance. Fred Boyce here didn't take that advice. In May, a driver first saw the 10-foot alligator crossing Highway 70 in sea level. Wildlife officials were called in from Kinston, but old Boyce, being a herpetologist at a nearby Pine Knoll Shores aquarium, was an expert on amphibians and reptiles and offered to help wrangle the gator. In the video shown here, you see him throw a towel over the animal's head to block his vision and approach it slowly from behind. But the alligator was having absolutely none of it as he whipped around and latched onto his arm. Boyce kicked at his snapping jaws and coolly backed away. He was treated at a local hospital and released. A team from the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission arrived to rescue the gator. It was taken to a swamp in Carteret County and released back into the wild. We have to respect our wildlife and give it space. Unlike our next victim, who actually thought that an alligator was a dog and approached it and found out otherwise. This incident happened around 12:30 a.m. at a Warm Mineral Springs motel in Northport. The man was taking a walk down a long dark path when he seen a figure that looked like a dog with a long leash, which is why he wasn't hesitant to move out of the way when the big gator lunged at him. And boy, did it do damage, as the alligator bit into the man's right leg, ripping off a chunk of his muscle. The man was treated at a Sarasota Memorial Hospital, recovered and was later released, and the gator was captured and removed from the area by trappers. A week prior, a man in Largo, Florida was killed after he was attempting to retrieve frisbee golf discs from a pond and was attacked by an alligator. Both these incidents come as Florida is at the peak of alligator mating season, which often runs from, like I said, May through July. Depending on temperatures during this period, it's not uncommon to see gators roaming around and being more active during these seasons. Just ask Jeffrey Hine, who was diving in the Wkrg River in search of megalodon teeth when his attack happened. Hine has 3 years of diving experience, but this time he did something he usually doesn't do. He went in the river alone. The Wkrg River is well known for alligator sightings, and it is alligator mating season. Hine knew alligators was in the water, but he didn't see any in the immediate area during the May 31st dive. Hine said, quote, "He haven't been in the river as much lately prior to the incident. He just decided to go that day because he was frustrated that he didn't find any shark teeth the day before." But for Hines, he said that the alligator came out of nowhere, and at first he thought he was hit by a boat. He said he went through his regular routine. He just got in the water, he took a couple of deep breaths, and he did one free dive. He said he'd come up and just got pulled back down by what felt like a boat that knocked his mask off with my GoPro. And he said, quote, "I just looked up and I seen the gator looking at me and knew and understood real fast that it wasn't a boat." And then the pain hit him. The big gator comes at him again and he move away slowly. And it comes at him a little bit faster again and he move away a little bit faster and climb out of the water onto a bank. Luckily for him, people were nearby and he yelled for them to call 911 as he thought he was going to die right there on the spot as he laid there on the bank because he felt so tired. He said that he just felt like he wanted to take a nap, but hearing from past experiences, he just thought it was his last moment. Brace yourself for this one, folks. Little Lane Graves bent over to scoop wet sand into his small bucket. The 2-year-old wanted to build a sandcastle on the beach at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa after stormy weather canceled a scheduled outdoor movie. His father, who was standing nearby with his wife and 4-year-old daughter, heard a splash and turned around to see that the alligator had grabbed Little Lane's by the head. Matt Graves then jumped into action by jumping in the water to try to save his son by pulling on the gator's snout, but he was unsuccessful, attempting to free his son from the gator's grips. Seconds later, the alligator pulled Little Lane underwater and both disappeared into the 7-Sea Lagoon. Detectives investigated and found that Lane's death was an accident. At least one witness lost consciousness during the attack, and deputies offered counseling services to another who remained distraught more than a few days later. Matt Graves also went into a hospital at the Celebration Health at the recommendation of emergency medical crews, who found that he had multiple cuts on his hands from the alligator's teeth and scratches on his feet. A lifeguard reportedly said that he heard Matt screaming and saw blood all over the right side of his face and on his right hand. The lifeguard said that he saw the victim and the alligator in the water about 15 to 25 feet from shore. The alligator started splashing around, and then they both just went underwater as the gator dragged the boys farther into the lagoon. After searching for nearly 16 hours, crews found Lane's body intact not far from the shore where the alligator grabbed him. A medical examiner determined that he had a traumatic neck injury and drowned. And a 21-year-old named Jesse Kissinger had a disagreement with his mother and ran into a wooded area behind their apartment along Lake Circle. The mother told police Kissinger was in need of psychological help, and she worried he was having an episode. Bloodhounds and helicopters and multiple officers on the ground began searching for Kissinger, using eyewitnesses' reports to track his location as he ran. Officers eventually located him from the skyline on the ground by a nearby lake. Kissinger jumped in the water and swam across the lake and got out near a sign that read, "Caution, alligators frequent this area." Kissinger's brother-in-law, Mike Taylor, was one of the first ones to find him on shore, bleeding profusely and in a lot of pain. He said to his brother-in-law, Mike Taylor, that his hand hurts, and Mike Taylor told Kissinger, "Hey, Jesse, you don't have a hand." Taylor then took off his shirt and applied pressure to Kissinger's arm to stop the bleeding. And according to doctors and paramedics, if he hadn't applied that pressure and made that makeshift tourniquet, Kissinger would have bled out and died. Kissinger was missing 3/4 of his left arm. It was presumed that an alligator bit it off, and it hasn't been recovered. Again, we must respect the territories and the boundaries of our local wildlife, no matter where they are.
Whoa!